Welcome, everybody. This is Two Sticks, One Puck. Today, I will be predicting the standings for the Pacific Division for the 2022-2023 NHL season. I'll be ranking the teams from 8th place to 1st place. So let's kick off this list with number 8. In number 8, I have the San Jose Sharks. The San Jose Sharks are a weird team. They like to tell themselves they're competing for a playoff spot without actually improving their team at all. Last year, they finished the season with a 32, 37, and 13 record for 77 points. Their top performer was Timo Meier with 76 points. This means that there are no point per game players on this team, and they have middling stats all around. Over the offseason, they traded Brent Burns, who was arguably their best defenseman when it came to offensive points. He had 56 points over the course of the season. With the loss of Brent Burns, this means Erik Karlsson is going to have to take on a bigger role. He only finished last season with 35 points, and frankly, he is on a terrible contract, which hurts the team from signing more players to help them improve. I think the biggest question mark when it comes to the San Jose Sharks is their goaltending. This season, their top goalies are going to be Kaapo Kähkönen and James Reimer. Kähkönen only played 11 games last year, had a 2.86 goals against average, and a .916 save percentage. James Reimer, on the other hand, played 48 games last year with a 2.90 goals against average and a .911 save percentage. Now, these numbers on paper seem pretty good, but can they carry this throughout the course of the entire season and give San Jose some luck behind the blue line? With San Jose's mediocre offense, pretty miserable defense, and questionable goaltending, this is why I have them in the 8th position for this upcoming season. Moving on to the 7th position, I have the Seattle Kraken. The Seattle Kraken, I think, are going to have a better season than last year. They should take a step up. They have some really exciting rookies, and they've made some meaningful additions in the offseason. Their record last year was pretty miserable, only recording a 27, 49, and 6 record, totaling 60 points. This is pretty miserable, and for them to jump over San Jose is going to take a lot, but I think they're capable of it. Their top performer was Jared McCann, who only recorded 50 points. While McCann was a great addition for the Seattle Kraken, this means there is no point per game players on Seattle. Fortunately, they've added Bjorkstrand and Burakovsky over the offseason, which should help improve their offense and lead to more goals. They also have Matty Beniers coming up for his first full season, and he looks like he's going to be the front runner for the Calder Trophy. Last year, he played 10 games with the Kraken, 3 goals, 6 assists for 9 points. If he can put up numbers similar to this for a full season, they are going to be much better offensively. Also, they just drafted Shane Wright. Is he going to make the team this year? We're not sure. But if they add Shane Wright, this just adds another weapon to their center position and makes them a better team throughout their depth. The biggest question with Seattle is their goaltending, which could easily make or break Seattle's season. As we know, Philip Grubauer had a miserable season after joining Seattle last year. He played 55 games, had a 316 goals against average and an 889 save percentage. Pretty terrible when comparing him to the year before on Colorado. Chris Driedger, their backup, played 27 games, had a 296 goals against average and an 889 save percentage. As you can see, Seattle doesn't have a lot of faith in their goaltending right now, and one of these guys needs to take a step up and become that 910 save percentage goalie that can win them games. Moving on to the 6th position, I have the Anaheim Ducks. The Anaheim Ducks are an interesting team. Last year starting off very strong, and by the end of the season performing pretty miserably. They have great young players that just need more time to develop, and they need to surround the young players with some more help. Their record last year was 31, 37, and 14 for 76 points. While having a pretty mediocre record last year, they do have some high points with their young players, such as Zegras and Terry, their 2 highest point guys all season last year. Zegras was 61 points and Terry was 67 points, respectively. If these guys can take another step forward and get closer to that point per game goal, then Anaheim is going to be in for an interesting season. However, they did have some significant losses over the course of last season and the off season. Ryan Getzlaf retired. Sonny Milano was not re-signed. They traded Raquel, they traded Lindholm, and they traded Manson. These are all major hits to Anaheim, and it's going to hurt them this season not having those guys. The only player they really acquired was Klingberg, and Klingberg is likely going to be sold at the deadline to a team who's looking to make a push for the playoffs. However, Mason McTavish should have a full-time role this year. He will be a much anticipated boost to Anaheim's offense. While their offense looks like it could be pretty good this year, their defense isn't fantastic, and their goaltending is an interesting situation. They want a bounce back season from John Gibson. He played 56 games last year, had a 319 goals against average and a 904 save percentage. These numbers are quite low from what we're used to seeing with John Gibson, so hopefully he can get it back together this season and give Anaheim some unexpected wins. However, a shining light in the net last year was Anthony Stolarz, putting up some pretty impressive numbers. He played 28 games. He had a 267 goals against average and a 917 save percentage. If Stolarz can steal the net from Gibson and put up these kinds of numbers, Anaheim has a chance to make a push for a higher position, and that's why I think they are going to end up in 6th place this year. Moving on to 5th place, I have the Vegas Golden Knights. This might be one of my hotter takes of the video. As we know, for the first time ever last year, Vegas missed the playoffs. Vegas is a team that has a lot of potential, a lot of really great players, but they just have too many question marks. They always have way too much money tied up into cap space and have to utilize long-term injury reserve. And this year is going to be no exception to that. They are going to be utilizing long-term injury reserve just as much as ever. Last year, their record was 43, 31, and 8 for 94 points. And while this is a great season to put up 94 points, in today's NHL, you don't make playoffs with 94 points. We're in a high-scoring era of the NHL. And this is exactly what Vegas is lacking. They need more scoring. Last year, their top performer was Jonathan Marchessault, and he had 66 points, which means, again, there is not a player that's a point per game on this team. They really struggle with scoring. And to add on top of that, they lost Max Pacioretty, a completely underrated goal scorer, for nothing. They just had to give him up because he wouldn't fit under the cap. So what does Vegas need to do? Well, Jack Eichel needs to bounce back. He played 34 games last year and only recorded 25 points. You want Jack Eichel to be at that point per game benchmark. He needs to be the leading offensive threat of this team. Another big question mark is, can Mark Stone stay healthy? He is an incredible two-way player, but as we know over the past couple seasons, he's been struggling with injuries. So if he stays healthy, this gives Vegas a much better chance at making that playoff push. The biggest question mark is goaltending. As we know, Robin Lehner is going to be out for the entire season. Vegas is going to be without their number one goalie. Their starting goalies this season are Adin Hill and Logan Thompson. Adin Hill did not have a great season with the San Jose Sharks last year. He's never really been that number one goalie that teams are looking for. So is Logan Thompson the answer? He had 19 games played last year, a .268 goals against average, and a .914 save percentage. He played very well for the short time he was with Vegas last year. And if he can carry these numbers throughout the entire season, this gives Vegas a much better chance. So between Vegas's scoring and their questionable goaltending, that's why I have them at 5th place. 4th place in my Pacific Division standings are the Vancouver Canucks. I'm very excited for the Vancouver Canucks this season. They are going to have a full season with Bruce Boudreau. Last year, when they fired their head coach, Travis Green, halfway through the season and replaced him with Bruce Boudreau, this team became significantly better overnight because of that one change alone. Before this change in coaching, Vancouver didn't have any hope in making the playoffs. As soon as they changed coaches, they were making a push for the playoffs, and they only needed another week's worth of games to probably make the playoffs. They were very, very impressive last season after the coaching change. Their record was 40, 30, and 12 for 92 points. If they can bring up this points percentage a little higher, they have a really good shot at making the playoffs. Last year, their top performer was JT Miller with 99 points. I don't know if he reaches 99 points again this season, but as long as he's a point per game, Vancouver's got a really good chance. And as we know, JT Miller has re-signed after all the trade rumors that were going on all year. It's so exciting that he is back with the team. A key contributor up front that needs to take a step up is Elias Pettersson. He didn't have a great season last year. He still put up some fairly decent numbers, but he needs to step up and become that point per game player that Vancouver expected when they drafted him. With that boost to their offense, that will really help Vancouver. As we know, Quinn Hughes is an elite defenseman, getting 68 points last year. He's a key offensive contributor. This team has a lot of weapons up front that can score. Their defense overall has some question marks. You have OEL back there, and they could really use a shutdown defenseman. Somebody who can stop the play in the neutral zone, turn it back around the other way, and get the offensive guys firing. That's what Vancouver needs. Another bonus that Vancouver has is great goaltending with Thatcher Demko. Last year, he played 64 games, had a 272 goals against average and a 915 save percentage. And these numbers only get better if he makes playoffs. He is an incredible playoff performer. So, with Vancouver's really good offense and their great goaltending, I do think that they have a shot at making playoffs this year. Moving on to number 3 is the Los Angeles Kings. I feel like the Kings are totally slept on in all of these predictions. They had a fantastic season last year. They recorded a 44, 27, and 11 record, which is 99 points. The great part about the Kings is they have a really nice mix between all of their young, upcoming talent and veteran leadership. When we look at the LA Kings last year, they are ahead of schedule on their rebuild, and this should put them in a position to make playoffs for years to come. They put up a great fight against Edmonton last year, only getting eliminated in Game 7 against the Edmonton Oilers. That's a very impressive performance for a team that's still technically rebuilding. Their top performer last year was Anze Kopitar. He recorded 67 points. Now, while this means LA doesn't have a point per game player, they are a great defensive team, and they are able to shut out other teams like they did with Edmonton last year, shutting down McDavid, shutting down Draisaitl. You have Kopitar, who's an amazing two-way player. You have Phillip Danault, who, as we saw in the Montreal series, can shut down just about any player on the ice. You still have Drew Doughty. If he stays healthy for playoffs, they have a great shot at making a push. This team is built for defense, and they grind, and eventually you're going to give up a goal to them. Now, LA is hoping that Byfield can take a step forward after having a pretty disappointing season last year. He only got 10 points. They really need him to take the next step, get some more points under his belt, and contribute to that offense that LA does need. But the shining news is they added Kevin Fiala, who is an incredible offensive threat and should fit in fantastic with LA. Kevin Fiala had a great season with Minnesota last year. And when you put him with LA's lineup and their mix of young players and veterans, he's going to be a great fit and add to the offense. Again, goaltending is a question mark with this team. You have Jonathan Quick, who had a pretty good season last year. He played 46 games, 259 goals against average, and a 910 save percentage. The problem with Quick is he is getting older, and is he able to keep putting up these seasons over and over again? I don't know. But if he can, LA's got a solid person in net. Their backup goaltender, Peterson, played 37 games, and 289 goals against average, and only an 895 save percentage. They really need Peterson to step up and at least be that backup goalie option for Quick so he doesn't have to play so many games to try and help Quick's longevity throughout the season. With LA's skill and their defensive upside, I have them at third place. In second place, I have the Calgary Flames. The Calgary Flames, over the course of the offseason, went from 0 to hero in about a week. We know the story with Calgary. We know how they lost Gaudreau and Tkachuk, which were 2/3 of the best line in hockey last year. Calgary last year put up a 50, 21, and 11 record for 111 points, and Gaudreau and Tkachuk were two key contributors to that very impressive season. So after losing them, what does Calgary do? They go out, they get Huberdeau, who is one of the best wingers in the entire league. They get Mackenzie Weegar, who is a huge defensive threat and will set up people for goals all season long. They get Nazem Kadri, who is going to be a fantastic second line center for the Calgary Flames, and he is going to fit like a glove. As we know, Kadri's got a lot of scoring potential, but he is not a stranger to the physical game in the NHL. And they also have Sonny Milano on a PTO, and I do believe he's going to make the team and contribute to Calgary's offense. So they have a brand new core, which is very rare to see. It's incredibly rare for a team to lose major parts of their core, bring in new guys, and still be ranked this highly on a list. But for the names alone, how can you not? They still have all their defensive threats from last year with Anderson, Hanifin, Tanev, and now Weegar. Their offense should be just as deadly with Huberdeau, Lindholm, Mangiapane, Toffoli, Kadri. They have it all. They have all the pieces they need to make another impressive season. And to top it all off, they have incredible goaltending with Markstrom, 63 games played, 2.22 goals against average, and a .922 save percentage. These numbers are frankly incredible. One of the best goalies in the entire league. The downside is he lost it in the playoffs. Now, he really needs to bounce back from that disappointing playoff run and put up another season like he did last year, where he was arguably the third best goalie in the NHL. And then to top that off, you have a new rookie goalie, Dustin Wolf, who looks like he is going to be the next big goaltender in Calgary. How can you go from Markstrom to this guy? Wolf had a season last year with the Stockton Heat playing 47 games, a .235 goals against average, and a .924 save percentage. Incredible numbers. Can these numbers translate to the NHL? That is yet to be seen. But if it does, Calgary is going to be on track to have just another incredible season. Very excited to see them this year, and I have them at second place in the Pacific Division. And finally, to cap it all off, you saw this coming. First place in the Pacific Division is the Edmonton Oilers. I mean, what do you even say about the Oilers? They are an offensive weapon. They made it to the final four of playoffs last year for a reason. They finished last year with a 49, 27, and 6 record at 104 points. Their top performer is who? Of course, it's Connor McDavid with 123 points. They have such an incredible offense with McDavid, Draisaitl, Kane, Hyman, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, who's incredibly underrated. They have enough offense that they can finally keep McDavid and Draisaitl on separate lines and have scoring threats rolling throughout their lineup. It's an unrelenting wave of attack after attack after attack. That being said, their defense it's good. It's not great. You know? Is it good enough to compete? Obviously, they got torn apart by Colorado last year in the playoffs. We'll have to see. It was plenty good in the regular season, and so maybe with a deal or two at the trade deadline, like these guys have a real shot at making a deep run in the playoffs. Not to mention that they are going to have a full season with Jay Woodcroft, another situation of a coach coming in midway through the season and completely turning the team around. I don't know if people remember, but Edmonton, before acquiring Jay Woodcroft, they were on a downward spiral, dropping further and further in the standings. And they acquired Jay Woodcroft, got him behind the bench, and Edmonton climbed for the rest of the year, winning game after game after game. They're an incredible team. I really hope they do make a deep run. They have a new goalie tandem with Jack Campbell and Stuart Skinner. These two are likely an upgrade over Smith and Koskinen. While Smith had a good season last year, he can't keep it going forever. And Koskinen was just bad. I'm sorry to say it. He was just bad last year. So Jack Campbell coming in off of a season with the Leafs where he had his highs, he had his lows. He's still a good goalie. He's competent. He's going to have a good season with the Oilers. And I am very excited for this team to push in playoffs and hopefully be the next Canadian team to make the finals. That's it, guys. These are my predictions for the Pacific Division in the upcoming 2022-2023 season. Let me know if you agree, disagree, and drop your ranking below. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time where I'll be looking at the Central Division.